All right. Good evening. Gonway, what did you just do?
That man still here?
Turn the light back on. We can't see you.
Hey, he went dark.
Why would you even think that was a good idea?
He went stealth. He was like, yo.
Man, I'm offended. I am thoroughly offended.
Why would you think turning off the lights with a webcam on is a good idea? Like, how did that?
I thought the light was enough, but you know what I mean? I was wrong, man. You know what I mean? So,
Jeez. Okay, so good evening to everybody. Let's do this. I always want to say hello to Alyssa first for the people who may not remember you.
It's Alyssa, by the way.
What'd you say?
Alyssa.
Oh, Alyssa. Isn't that what I said?
You said Alyssa.
Are you sure?
Get him.
Yes.
Get him.
Huh.
Okay, that's why I'm correcting you. So now you know.
Okay. We actually did a great chat the other day, and let's see. If anybody wants to go back and listen, it was Brazil's musical tradition, and we had a good time with that. We had a real good time with that, and I'm glad to have you back as somebody, you know, who is a musician and so much more, and you can add a lot of insight to what we do. For everybody else, I'm hoping everybody remembers Gonway the Prodigy, who bounces back and forth through Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you on your way back?
Not for a while, man. Not for a while. I'll be back, but not for a while. Right now, it's ain't clear sailing right now, so we're not gonna take that chance.
Yeah, you'd be on quarantine when you got in. So.
Yeah, you don't want to have to sneak past the barricade. And Craig Washington,
Yo.
the man who is perpetually about to start a podcast, YouTube channel eventually, even though he's got more equipment than I'm ever going to purchase.
One of these days, I will get around to it. I promise, man. It's gonna happen.
I know. But hey, thanks for showing up. You know, I always enjoy when you come around. You know, something I've been showing a lot of people. Interestingly enough, a lot of people have asked me a whole lot of questions now that things have gotten a little tight around the edges. It's the same people who used to make fun of me for being a prepper, and they talk about, well, you don't need all this, you don't need all that. And I'm redirecting them. I said, listen, you might want to go check this out. Because we did Storm Prepper, How to Survive a Natural Disaster. And we did a couple other things on my Patreon. I'll show you guys later. But the thing is, it's getting tight around the edges. I don't know anybody in Brazil this has happened to, but I do know some people in the United States who have gone to supermarkets and seen empty shelves.
Yeah, I haven't noticed it here since I've been in Brazil.
No, and here's what I've noticed in Brazil, though. I have friends who have told me that they've gone to supermarkets and now they're not being allowed to buy as much as they want of everything. There are certain things that aren't gone per se, but are a little on the low side. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share with you guys a picture, and this is from someplace in the United States, mind you. Check this out. You see all those empty boxes? Yeah, that's an American supermarket.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is, man. That's something else.
And that's something you would think would come out of a picture about some forlorn country halfway around the world that you would never even think about.
First look of mine was Guatemala or something like that. I had no idea that was in the U.S.
That was in the United States.
Jesus.
You know, and now we've got what maybe bring you guys together. We've got this stimulus check coming, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Trump bucks. I call them Trump bucks.
What's happening?
We call it Trump bucks.
That might take some months.
Well, nobody knows how quickly that's going to be disseminated to the people.
So before I even get into that, I'll made it a point to say, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it on your Twitter or your Facebook. And subscribing is how the channel got so good. We've had so much fun with a lot of the people that have come through, and our channel has it's gone great. It's gone like gangbusters. But going back to this check, now I want to talk about two governments, not just the American government, but the Brazilian government. Okay, both governments are talking about getting this stimulus check out.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about getting people some money, and I've got a couple of things my brain is cooking up, and I want your opinion on it. Oh, by the way, before I forget, hold on a second. I'll show you guys something. Somebody you might want to go jump on hers. She's coming up the rough side of the mountain, as they used to say. She's starting to really put out some content, and she just put escape to Brazil, passport and visa. Check out her page. You know, like I tell everybody, check it out for a month. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's cool too.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, here's, and I'm going to put it in the comments. Here's where I am. Because I am completely legal in Brazil, green card, permanent resident, with a registered business, I found out that my business is actually eligible for the stimulus package. I just went online, put in my my number, and they said, we'll let you know. But because I'm a registered small business, I get that. And that's a big deal, because it's not necessarily if the amount is big or small, but if this money comes through and helps how many Brazilians out of where they are for a little bit of money, my question becomes, in the American government or the Brazilian government, if they can get their shit together this fast to cut checks, what else could they have been cutting checks for that they didn't? What does that tell you is if next week Brazilians and Americans get a check from their government to stop the economy from crashing as hard and fast?
Was that a question or?
That was a question. Sound a little angry though. Sorry about that.
I mean, I'll start. I mean, it's kind of, and I'm not by any way, it's kind of an objective point of view. When I say this, it's kind of, you can't really correlate the two. I mean, sure, you did mention the reparations things kind of in the preface of your message. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, they're different, but they're the same in a sense that they're different in the sense that this is like the entire country. Like, this is millions of lives that could end like next week, you know what I'm saying, or down the line, you know, not just directly from the coronavirus, but the after effects, you know, the secondhand smoke, the looting, the rioting, whatever may come after that, people being evicted from their homes. That is a direct response to the coronavirus. The reparations things is very true. It's not to say that, you know, that blacks aren't all reparations. That's true. You know, there is a award that is deserved, you know, by the black population. But I think that's a little bit more complicated in the sense that, you know, reparations, one would bring up the argument to say that, you know, it playing devil's advocate, just to kind of push this point through, that, well, that was my family, or that was John Brown down the street ancestors that enslaved blacks. My family didn't have anything to do with that, so why am I being punished? You know, there's definitely nuances that I agree, like I said, that blacks are owed reparations, but I think there's still a conversation and at least what needs to be paid out and what people are owed in order to cut that check. This is not like pleasure money or whatever. This is money to, like you said, keep the economy from being belly up, you know, from bellying up. So, I mean, that's just my kind of 2 cents on that.
A question that I have is, I think there's a little bit of a difference between how the US is doing it and how Brazil's doing it. Correct me if I'm wrong, for the folks that live in Brazil, even though it's 600 reais, is it for an extended amount of period, 2 to 3 months?
The minimum is going to be 3 months, I believe they said. And while you're giving your explanation, I'm going to show something, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a question about that. And then we're doing in the US, we're doing like a one-time 1,200 that may or may not be coming out of your tax refund from next year. So more like a loan.
May or may not.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any clear-cut vision on what it's supposed to be like. From what I'm being told, though, it's more like a borrow, like more of a loan, and it'll probably just be like a prepayment of your following year's tax refund is what they're using to fund it. Which I guess if you're going to do it that way, that's a very business way to do it. I think Brazil is handling the whole thing a lot more humanely, even though it's 600 reais. But if it changes the lives of just a few individuals, I think it'll be worth it. Because as you know, the disparity of the economy, or the disparity between the rich and the poor in Brazil is a lot greater than it is in the United States. And literally, it will stop people from.
It's not as great as we think, though.
You think so?
I worked in the financial industry long enough, about 9 years, that gave me my financial freedom. I can tell you the reason it appears that way, in my opinion, we can play word games all day and pull up numbers. Sure. Americans achieve their middle class through pure debt. That really doesn't make you have anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What were you going to disagree with that? Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure.
I'll give you an example.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll give you an example real quick. Two things. One, this is a chart that I was given that was true in 2013. Then the economy rebounded, and now they said it's back to this again. For those that don't really get it, there's a 5-to-1 difference. That means in order to live in the top 10% of Brazilians, all you have to have is 1,000 US per month. Okay. Now, here's the other interesting part about it. I'll give you a story of a woman I know who's an Instagram model who a lot of very wealthy men send money to visit them. Okay. And she said she learned the hard way. She's from another country outside of the United States. She said she learned the hard way to never go visit American men for money. And it's softcore prostitution. That's what it really is, right? She's in one of my chat rooms. But here's the interesting part. I said, well, what do you have against the American sugar daddies? She said, when a guy from Jamaica sends you a picture with his diamond watch standing in front of his Mercedes or his Bentley in front of a mansion, it's his diamond watch, his Mercedes, and his Bentley. When a guy from the Sudan sends you a picture of him, playing with his pet tigers that cost thousands and thousands of dollars a day just to feed, those are really his pet tigers. But when an American sends you a picture of him with his mansion full of gold, it's actually not his. It's all owned by the bank. Because we're the only country in the world that will float debt to that degree. So she said she found a lot of American people that think, even worse than pretending, think they have money, are actually just in hock up to their noses to the bank, which is something that people with in the financial business that I was in.
Yeah, most people don't know how to manage credit or debt in the U.S. They have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
Which is why it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the U.S. because people don't have savings. And that $1,200 is
that's really nothing. Like, man, that's not even half of some people's rent payments. Like, let's just talk about rotating expenses. That's not even half.
It depends on where you live, but yeah, I get your point, man.
We don't.
But I mean, even now with inflation, though, 1,200 doesn't go very far. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it'll help the lowest tiers, but it's not going to help the middle class.
Well, 1,200. But here's the problem: is it going to help the lowest tier? When the only people it would help are people who made so little money they weren't going to have to file taxes anyway.
No, it's going to help because people have immediate needs. I mean, if you have someone who's working at Walmart and making minimum wage, they can't get by a month with no money.
I agree. They can't get by a month with no money.
If it's a loan, it's going to keep them from going hungry.
But the loan, when they have to pay it back, that money's going to come. They're going to basically starve in a few months.
Well, but things could be different in a few months, right? Now, I think we have to look at right now. Make sure people aren't starving now because people aren't going to stay at home and starve. You guys are talking about riots and stuff. No one's going to sit at home and be hungry. And
my whole point is
the roof in the U.S. So we need to make sure people have their basic needs.
Yeah. For people that don't have anything or they're looking towards being evicted, because I'm in situations where folks are looking at being evicted, so that 1,200 might just keep them in their place for an additional month. But then I don't know what's going to happen next, which is really concerning with me. Like when you take a look at how other countries, first world countries, are doing it. Mm-hmm. The way the U.S. is doing it is kind of backwards, and I don't understand it. So going forward,
give me an example of another large country that's doing it the right way.
You can look at what they're doing in Australia. You can look at what's going on in England, also in these. I want to say one of those. What'd you say? The Netherlands or one of those places? Yeah,
France that they're going to do rent payments and utility payments. I think it was France, Emmanuel Macron that said that
that's right.
They're going to freeze rent payments and things like that until the crisis is over, at least until it's manageable. So, I mean, I agree with that. I'm not really a super socialist person. I do believe in capitalism, but the way the U.S. is going about it certainly isn't the right way to we talk about freedom and whatever, but I'm saying you give somebody, that's like saying here's a loaf of bread, you can only eat the end piece and you're starving. You know what I'm saying? The piece that nobody wants, you can eat the end piece. That's all you get for the month is the end piece. Like, I mean, yeah, you could stretch that a little bit, but come May 1st, you're gonna be right back where you started. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much. And I agree with you, man, because it seems like, I think that there is a perfect mix between socialism and capitalism. In some countries, they have to individually figure it out for themselves. But I think the United States has been practicing an extreme form of capitalism since like the 70s, where it will literally eat its young in order to sustain itself. And I don't see how we break out of that, because I think it's so embedded in the DNA of the United States. I don't know if the leaders and the politicians think differently.
Well, I understand what you're saying about eating its young, because I take that literally. I just had a conversation with a young woman who is a few years behind me. She's 32. She's a millennial. And she's really upset because I always talk about how my younger cousins who are in their early 30s and late 20s get angry when I say, go to college and no matter what, that's the only thing that's important. They said, well, what? You got to remember, you graduated at a time when you could get a couple of scholarships, work after school, and get out into a market where everybody had a job. She said, now that's just not the case. They're in hot their neck. Jobs aren't coming. And now they've got to worry about it. Because I'm Generation X. We had a good time. I can't remember any distress at all during my adult life until the 2008 housing crisis. And I was well out of college then.
Right.
And had a job and careers and money saved and property owned. James Nelson said he doesn't think it's a loan. James, can you do us a favor? If you can find a link to pop in there to substantiate and give us some backup on that, I'd appreciate it. So she was telling me that right now, there are so many millennials that are working DoorDash, driving for Uber, pushing a bicycle for iFood and Uber Eats.
Gig economy, absolutely.
And a gig economy. And she said, we don't have careers. I tell people all the time, I don't have a job. I've got like 4 side gigs, and I choose if I want to work on a given day. She's like, they're working side gigs to eat. And they have 2 degrees, 3 degrees, some of them. I've only got 2. And it's awkward. So now they're caught. They got hit in 2008, and they're getting hit again. What is it going to look like when they're 65? What is it going to look like when they're 42 and a half like I am? How do they recover financially?
I just sent you a link, Yusef. Our response to this this topic. I don't know if you've seen anything about this experiment.
Yeah, your Sid Owsley actually says something that's pretty poignant about citizens in older countries basically tossing up their society when they've had enough. The founding fathers, they predicted that we should do that as an American people every 5 to 7 years, toss the society up to make sure your leaders are accountable. But we're so passive nowadays and fat, happy, and comfortable. I doubt anybody has the willpower to do that other than Twitter fingers.
I just think it's because people think they have too much to lose. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I just got a promotion making $90K and I can finally afford a Benz. Why would I want to give that up? And people don't realize, like, you know what I'm saying? Even you don't even know 5 years from now. You know what I'm saying? So 5 years from now, you could go to having that till, now you're living in a studio apartment. You can barely afford to buy a pack of ramen noodles. You're going to wish that you would have had listened to somebody instead of, the thing about it is, like, whenever you talk about your civil liberties and just like your standard of living in general, people always like to think that you're some crazy conspiracy theorist or whatever you want to call it. Like, but it's the honest truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing stays the same. It's either going to get better or it's going to get worse. And you know what I'm saying? Like you said, people get so passive because they're so comfortable and they think, oh, it's America. That would never be the case. All right, well, look where we at now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, how much do you guys think that this whole image? I'm sorry, Elise.
I think that what we're coming to realize worldwide is we're only as strong as your weakest link.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to start rethinking everything in terms of that. And I just sent a link to Yusef. But there are studies, or not studies, but like kind of experiments going on in How do you create a system? How do you create a society where you're not always fighting fires of poverty? You know, you're not always like your base is strong enough that you're not always throwing money at problems. You know, your basic survival problems.
And do you want to explain this article?
Hmm?
Do you want to explain this article?
So basically, it's an experiment they were looking at Africa and how much cash gets thrown at just fighting fires because people can't even get to a level of survival where they then can strengthen their base. So they said instead of throwing money at fighting fires, you know, giving hundreds of millions for, you know, starvation here, hundreds of millions for health epidemics here. Let's take a community, let's give everyone a base salary for, I think it's 12 years here. And let's see if people have enough to survive on what happens. And it's a huge success. There was another, this is one of them, but there was another one I was reading about some years back where they took a look after 5 years. And all of the things that had been causing these huge problems that then the NGOs or World Bank or someone would come in and loan the country millions of dollars to deal with, they weren't happening because people had food, so they had their health taken care of. Kids weren't working, they could go to school. And if some people were like, oh no, if you just throw money at people, they're not going to work. They saw that the opposite happened. When people had enough to take care of their basic needs, they were able to dream. They were able to look at other things that they could do to increase their wealth.
You sound like a socialist.
A lot of people became entrepreneurs and started hiring other people. So people having a basic level for survival, basic level of comfort, actually created more wealth.
I agree with that 100%.
This virus like starts pointing our heads in that direction.
Yeah, once you're able to live in a society where people can take care of their basic needs, just like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
yeah,
you start to have a society that can thrive, as opposed to just putting out fires like you talked about before, or being reactive rather than proactive. Because if you look in the United States now, we're very reactive. It's like things happen, boom, we throw money at it, and what's next? What's next? And we never really plan too far ahead because we're prepared for we're thinking about the next disaster that's going to happen, as opposed to thinking in the future. I agree with that. But again, you're talking about socialism. So, you know, that's a hard sell for a lot of Americans, unfortunately.
Well, let's name it an ism. If it's going to be ism, can it just be humanism?
Yeah, I agree. It makes sense to me.
It seems like it's even about politics. It's about being human.
It's like I'll tell you
what I've seen, not just in my travels, but I firmly believe that the reason I was able to get out of the game and semi-retire early is because I got to see the dirty underside of money. Money is an amazing tool. Money is only hated by people who don't have enough. Money is the reason that I got out of where I am. I tell people all the time, I love money. Money is my favorite subject. However, I learned a couple of things about the way it works, and I'm going to go to Maslow's hierarchy chart that we talked about earlier. One, when Ganwe talked about that guy that made $95,000 a year and he's got the big Mercedes and he's got all that other stuff, what people never really catch on to, no matter how much you tell them, is a few small things. One, he's probably got credit cards that help him finance it, right? Something that my clients got really angry at me about, because I've lost clients that didn't want to hear this, when I would say, my goal is to make sure you have no credit cards a year from now. I had clients leave my office and go to someone else, because the average person doesn't know that there are billions of dollars spent to convince someone that credit cards are a good idea, or that they won't end up screwing you again. They're designed to. Most people don't know that. But if I make, let's say that same guy that makes $95,000 a year now started at a $40,000 a year job as a basic grunt, and he hustled his way up. Here's the problem. The first year when he made 40, his expenses, he probably only spent $35,000 a year and saved a little bit. But then he got up to 42. Now he's making 45. He's got that extra 5 in his pocket. Now he's spending 45 a year. By the time he's got 50, 60,000 a year in income, he's spending 65, 75. At 95, he's spending 110.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
It's not linear, it's exponential.
Wow.
And all he does is tell himself, I'm in the top 1% of earners. I know I'll have another paycheck coming for the next month to cover all these things I'm going to buy now. Whereas before he was content with maybe he and his wife, and maybe they got one kid, and they got a simple 2-bedroom house, no big deal. But now you have a better garage to put the nicer car in, and whereas before going out to Chuck E. Cheese for the kid's birthday was good, now they got to have private parties with 15 imported clowns for a 5-year-old that can't tell the difference anyway. This is the American dream. So when the economy crashes, you find those people. I mean, and I don't say this to be funny. This is not a joke. You find people jumping out of windows and hanging themselves in their own closets.
Wow.
During the housing crisis, when I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, I owned a house and I made some good decisions on it. I remember listening to an NPR radio story about a woman who lived in Las Vegas near us. Her best friend called her one night because no one had any money. Their houses were worth nothing. And she said, "Hey, how are you? How are you and the kids?" And she said, "Oh, we're doing good, blah, blah, blah. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow." And as soon as she hung up, she said, "There's something wrong with my best friend." So she gets in the car, hauls ass over there, and kicks in the door, calls the police. The woman had killed her 2 children and then killed herself.
Wow.
Because she said she didn't know how she was going to feed them tomorrow. And they didn't have any food for the past 2 days. No one they knew. They slipped through the process. That stuff happens. I know a woman who worked on Wall Street who miscarried during that financial crisis because her doctor said, "You can't work and be a financial professional." She said, "Yes, I can." But the stress of that job and watching retired people lose what money they had, 70-year-old people that were never going to be able to feed themselves, yeah, the stress caused them to lose a baby. This stuff is real. We don't like to talk about it that way. You know, that's the thing. It's a real thing. And so where do we go now? You know, when we see this train coming, my goodness, can you imagine the level of mental help we're going to need?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
We're sick. We are sick as a culture, society. One thing I noticed about leaving the United States, and Yusef, I sent you a link by the shock rocker Marilyn Manson. He talks about he gave a really succinct talk about how it is to be in America, how consumerism and fear by various sources feeds consumerism and fear, paranoia, and it makes us buy. It makes us give this false illusion of what being an American is, and it's really eye opening.
Well, this was a really problem of mine. I will tell you something interesting about Marilyn Manson because I've been a fan of his music for a while. The thing that makes people not want to allow him on their television shows is he is extraordinarily well thought out and well spoken.
He will show you up.
He has embarrassed several professional newscasters when they look at the face paint and said, "Oh, that's not a big deal. This is probably some drug-addled hippie rock and roller." And he was like, "No, I think I'm going to make you look like a fool." I remember one of the most pointed things he said was, they said, "Well, what would you say to the children at Columbine?" He said, "I wouldn't say anything. I would listen."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he talks, like I said before, he talks about how Americans are in a constant state of fear and paranoia, and it drives consumerism. And
check that out.
That's pretty much where we are now.
But to piggyback on what Alicia said, on the the experiment that they did in Africa, and I thought about it.
Growing up,
will we really be able to do that? I think maybe the next 2 generations, no, simply because on the culture of money that we have. I mean, we got kids wanting to buy phones that cost $1,100. Would you really think that you're giving somebody, let's just say our money, you give somebody $20K for the next 5 years to manage that, or for it, which wouldn't be a lot. Let's just say 3 years, 20,000, without taxes. This is the money that you have for your expenses. You can work whatever, but this is the money that you have. And I can almost guarantee you that money would be gone in 6 months. I mean,
wait. You just lost me.
So I was piggybacking on her idea of what happened in Kenya when they gave people that amount of money and see what would happen. Would they spend it all? Would they use it? And it's coming piggybacking off the idea of our culture and the way we we think of money. You know what I'm saying? So what I was saying is it wouldn't necessarily be practical right now. And I didn't want to interrupt the conversation earlier. That's why I didn't bring it up. But it wouldn't. I don't think it'd really be practical right now. And also, one thing I learned in the school was how to manage money. We had a home econ, and so I learned how to like cook, make basic things. I know kids don't have that these days. We learn how to balance a check. I learned how to write a check. I think we need to get back to that in school with the younger kids, maybe coming up in middle school, high school, maybe even college, how to, calculate what your interest rate will be, or, how much, so how to figure out what your net income is going to be on your paychecks without looking at your pay stubs.
So are you saying that giving people this money isn't going to help because they won't know how to manage it? Is that what you're?
I'm saying it's a cultural thing. I'm saying that it wouldn't help because it's a cultural thing. I mean, like you said, we're terrible with money. So, I mean, look at tax season. Tax season is a perfect example. You have a job already, your needs are met, but yet you have people who default on car loans because they get cars that, I mean, the money is pretty much free, right? You work for the money, the government gives it to you back. So this is money that's used at your discretion. Then why do so many people default on car loan when they buy cars with their tax money? It's because the cars that they're getting is outside of what they're able to pay for. You know what I'm saying? So I think our culture and how we behave with money and how knowledgeable we are, how money works. And I just think it's the keeping up with the Joneses syndrome as well. That kind of style of, I don't want to say governing, but that kind of style of wealth distribution is not going to work, at least right now. We can start gearing our future, our offspring, our offspring, how to possibly live in a system like that, and that would help. But I think for us right now, it's a little too late. I'm just going to be frank about it.
I'm not sure. I don't know, man. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I do agree with the cultural part of it. But I think the younger people are probably forced to be a lot more financially literate because of the things that they're going through right now. Andrew Yang was a proponent for what, $2,000 a month guaranteed income, and I think that would pull a lot of people out of the bowels of poverty. And I think they would learn how to handle it. I mean, I agree that there's a learning curve. And I also do agree that they should have financial literacy and basic, how to do stuff in schools anymore. And I think that's done on purpose, but that's another conversation. But I think due to necessity, I think kids nowadays, now folks like me, maybe it's too late for, not really sure, I'm in my 40s, but people 35 and younger, I think because of the situations that they're going through right now, that they will get it and they'll understand it. So it might work well, man. Who knows?
I think we're going to find out really soon.
We're not going to have a choice. We're headed in that direction, for sure. I'm concerned about how healthcare is going to change and how how the economics of how we do business in the U.S. is going to change.
Well, here's the problem. Money isn't going to. It's not like turning your car on after the car has been off all night. It's going to be more like starting a diesel engine. It's going to be a long process because even if they say, hey, everything goes back to normal tomorrow, how many people are going to be going out there and restaurants? I mean, look at me selfishly, right? Craig, you understand I love restaurants. You understand how much enjoyment do I get out of, when you got here saying, hey, guess where I'm going to take you this weekend? I'm going to show you this other restaurant. I think of all those little mom and pop restaurants that's around the corner and down the way that I took you to. How many of them I won't get to show you now? How many of those people, not just the owners, but the sandwich making guy, the kid making salads, the butcher, the baker, how many of those people, when they say, okay, you guys can open again, will that restaurant be able to just open their doors and buy more food? Will they have money to call the meat company and says, can you front me, a month worth of beef so I can make sandwiches to sell and pay you back?
Yeah, it's going to take a while for that whole system to ramp up again. And then you got to have, consumer confidence as well. People aren't going to just, I would assume people wouldn't automatically just start, when they say, hey, the quarantine's over, people are just going to flood the streets and do what they did normally. So I think there's going to be a certain amount of fear factor, and that's going to affect the economics of the local economy. And so it's going to be a learning process. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah.
How many of those people will still be able to maintain their businesses?
Yeah, I wonder if the Brazilian government is thinking about that, because I have some friends that have a restaurant here, and they were like, well, we're still paying our employees. It's the first month, we're not in the red yet, but if this keeps going for a couple of they're still paying. They can negotiate rent, but for them to keep producing, they have to keep buying things, and they don't know. They were saying, right now people are still buying takeout, but 2-3 months, like you were saying, down the line, when people don't have any more discretionary income. And they were saying there is help for businesses, but it's in the form of a loan, which isn't ideal.
I think of it this way. I look at myself as an investor. I don't know if you guys follow cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin. I'm going to show you a chart. And I'm going to go back to almost 30 days ago. Okay. March. Hold on. Let me make this a little bit bigger. See if I can. Okay. I'm going to give you an example of how I think and how a lot of my friends think, even though this is completely the antithesis of what we're dealing with. This day right here, Thursday, March 12th, Bitcoin dipped. And I did something called buying the dip. I do dollar cost averaging, meaning I purchase the same amount of money in different investments every month by percentage. I wasn't spending any money on anything. Then I saw that. And now my question is, if I'm a vulture, right? Let's say I want to buy the apartment I'm in. My landlady had been trying to convince me and seduce me, financially into buying this apartment for years. Well, now I might be able to say, hey, got a couple dollars for you. Oh, come on. You want it? Oh, you want it? You want it?
This guy.
Right? Are the cryptos going up?
Yeah, crypto's going up. We'll have to have, I haven't had a good cryptocurrency conversation in a while. We'll have to do that again soon. I have some friends that are interested in some other cryptocurrency comments and questions. But here's where we go with that. I'm not going to spend money the way I did before. I was never reckless with my cash. But the question now becomes, when do you get the confidence of the people who have the money? When will, how do we go from there?
When you say people that have the money, what do you mean exactly? Like when regular consumers, the middle class, or the people that are in the 1% feel confident enough to spend their money?
He's talking about people with discretionary income.
Okay. Gotcha.
Like,
yeah.
When does that confidence come back?
Friday. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the thing. Because what do we know? The smartest people don't spend money when everybody else is. And when everybody else doesn't have any money, we spend. Like I went out and I just made, on that day, I went out, I got on my phone and I called a couple of other cryptocurrency investors and I said, I'm in the mood to buy. And it was like a litmus test. I wanted to see who had that strong money that they could just hold it and who
had to let it go.
I got to let it go. I got bills to pay, maybe this, maybe that, maybe not. I didn't have it before. And it wasn't personal, but it was like, how do you want it? You want it American? You want it Brazilian? You want it, in PayPal? What do you want? And, there was a bit of resentment from some, but at the same time, I pulled in a little bit on it. And that's how it's going to work, because right now I'm a small fry. Think about the people who have the cash to buy 5 or 6 houses that they've been sitting on. Now they can buy 10.
Yeah.
Where do we go? Because this is a case of the rich get richer. Think about the Brazilian or the American stimulus. Because I'm a registered business, I get this money. Am I going to have to spend that $600 on bread? No. I'm going to be able to put it in Brazilian investments. Hey, Green Machine. Hope you're having a great day.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is always that you'll stimulate the economy so that things can start churning along. But I'm going to stimulate my own economy.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the thing. It's like capitalism creates a situation where if you are if you're under the bar, even by a little bit, the odds on you getting over the bar to making something are slim to none. But if you're over the amount you need for daily living, even by a little bit, you can multiply that slowly over time. But most people never get that.
Mm-hmm.
And the governments are trying to figure out, what do we do now? After decades of watching, as you said, Craig, watching capitalism force itself to eat its own young, watching all the people who are disproportionately just skewered by ruthless cutthroat capitalism that has no upside for the stunning majority of people. But what did Sid Owsley say earlier? Hold on, I think he said something earlier. He said, is this possible? In 2020, do you think the average American, rank and file, has the steel in his spine or her spine to pull some shit like that?
Hell no. We're so comfortable with reality TV, Burger King. We're addicted to convenience in the US. And so we don't have the fight to do that like in other countries, because we feel like, and again, I think this whole image of, rugged individualism and I can do it alone and I don't have to worry about anybody else, I think that has something to play with it as well, because, if we don't see collectively how we can affect change, if everybody's worried about themselves, that's how they keep things the way they are. That's how the status quo is maintained.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have the willpower. We don't have the willpower to do that.
But here's the thing, right? Remember what you said. When you talked about having the courage and what we have in the United States, we've got the cheapest junk food in the world. Every place else in the world, I can go out and how I eat. I can go get an entire roasted chicken, a side of vegetables, steamed, some butter, and a baked potato for almost nothing. But if we went to someplace like McDonald's, it's going to cost an arm and a leg, right?
McDonald's is expensive as hell in Brazil.
In every place in the world, junk food is expensive. Yep. But in America, it's hey, Amika, it's so glad to see you. So glad to see you. It's awkward because you realize that, for example, there's been a lot of studies that a bread shortage immediately predates all riots. What did we learn from the Dust Bowl in the United States, and what did we learn from countries that did have riots? We learned that if you want to stop people from overthrowing the government, you just make sure the kids are fed, even if they live in a shack.
Or you give them carnival every year.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, listen, the more you know, let me rephrase that. You can never unknow something you know.
Yeah.
I know that, and this is the hard part, right? How can I enjoy carnival now that I live in Brazil? And you know where I'm going with this, Craig. We live in Brazil, and we know that it's a manipulation.
Yeah.
I do that. This is my first carnival this year, and I knew that there was like price gouges everywhere. I'm like, I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy it, but it was so blatant to me that I didn't buy into the hype of carnival, first of all, because it was my first year. So like, I want to enjoy it. I'm gonna try not to be like this, like socially observant. Just try to be like everybody else, right? And I couldn't do it. I just went to, I think I went to Lapa, downtown Rio one time. And man, normally, to get in some places, it's like 10 real, you get a drink, 15 real. So the most you'll pay for just one club to just have a drink and enter is like maybe 25 real, which isn't much. So you go during Carnival and they're like, oh, well, it's 30 to get in. And this caipirinha is like 50 real. And I'm being a little bit bombastic, but it was a price gouge. Even to get, like one can of beer. I don't drink beer, but for example, people are paying like 8 real, you know what I'm saying? And people will buy it because they want to get drunk. But it's crazy. It is wild. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the time that a lot of people make a majority of their money is during that season.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that governments always tend to do that. They'll usually do something that's fun for everybody. And in Brazil, I really noticed it is when they're trying to cover up or manipulate something. Hey, let's have a party, or let's have another holiday. I've never seen so many holidays in a country than when I came here to Brazil. It seems like there's 3 times a month, somebody's having a holiday for something, and it's a reason to party. And then you wonder why all of that's going. Like, why is there so many goddamn parties all the time, and the holidays and stuff like that? But
yeah, and it's like, don't look at what I'm doing with this hand. Look, oh no,
exactly.
Right.
And lies one tells the truth. It's like 3 years after. Yeah, distractions.
When the pressure is about to the point of blowing, it's carnival.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't know. I'll tell you what I do. I try to support the samba schools and things. Cause I go to a lot of ensayos where I can give them directly money, and they'll have a night of parties where you get a big bowl of dinner and get to watch the show for $10. And I try to give it. Oh, you know what? Shelly Lloyd asked a question. Who wants to take this one? Conway.
I guess I'm the real expert now. Lapa is it's a neighborhood in downtown Rio. Imagine like a suburb in your city that is completely made of bars and clubs. That's people live there, but it would suck to live there because you wouldn't sleep. It's just all bars and clubs. I'll be honest, it's a little filthy. Lapa smells like urine around midnight, 1 a.m.
It's like Bourbon Street in New Orleans.
I've never been there, but I can. Okay. That's what it is. I imagine that, but it's worse. So yeah, I mean, it's fun. You know what I'm saying? If you try not to pay attention to the smell and go nose blind, and you're like, okay, well, this music is nice, then you enjoy yourself. But if you
let's back up there now. I just want to separate myself from my friend here. Okay, Shelly, I don't hang out in places like that. Okay. I go if you want to get some good clean places, great music, places you can take your children. You can take she might have to wear earplugs. You can take your mom and your grandkids to hang out with me because that's the kind of get down. I like lots of music, lots of dancing, lots of costumes. Nobody is smelling like urine.
That's not fair because Lapa has a lot of samba. It has a lot of
So I want you to come check those two out. Samba and Saya with the legendary Vai Vai and the party before the carnival. Check those out. That's how I get down. I don't these degenerate, filthy places that Conway hangs out.
Yusef is throwing mad shade, bro. He's throwing mad shade. Hey, I like everything, man. I'm a jack of all trades.
You got to experience everything, man. You got to experience everything.
I'm a jack of all trades.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. There's somebody for everybody. Look, looks like Sid wants to get in some degeneracy with you.
Well, hey, Sid, tell this dude, man. Yusef is a square. That's why.
You know what? I am a square. Absolutely.
What do they do? All the way.
L7 for life. but yeah, that's something I noticed is there's always this thing that allows people to find a way to distract you. And I think that this $600 a month, if this $600 a month comes out, those are the funny places. James Nelson said. See, now we opened a can of worms. Look at what Sid said. If you don't know, listen, I don't drink alcohol. That's why I always notice it.
No, that's true, Sid. That's very true.
I can see Sid and Conway leaning on each other, trying to do the "I'm not drunk" walk.
Hey, chill, man. Chill, man. Family man, dog. Family man out here.
Woo! Raining women went hard.
That's ham.
Well, listen, get this. Since we're on the topic, I don't want anybody to think less of Raining Woman because she really does care about herself and her presentation, not just as a woman, but as a lady. I want everybody to make it a point to go over to her channel because she has a whole lot of awesome over there. She brings a lot of peacefulness. I want everybody to make it a point to join her as well. There's enough room for everybody. That's the cool thing about the internet. You can be her friend and my friend. You can be her friend and my friend too.
Right on.
Now I want to show you guys something because we were talking about what it looks like when you see that empty food shelf and all the chaos that may come. Has anybody seen this quote? Now I don't know if this is really him who said it, though. I don't know if this quote is dead accurate, but who's heard that quote before?
Wow, never heard that.
3 meals away from chaos.
We will find out.
Well, if that's like the classic struggle between the patricians, the plebes, and let them eat cake. So I don't know if he said it, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. When you get people to a situation when they can't feed their children, they have nothing left to lose. That's when they charge the line. That's when they just say, you know what? I can't go home empty-handed.
Right.
And that's what's threatening to happen here in Brazil specifically, particularly with the extreme poor. That's something that's very real, probably more real here than it is in the United States.
Yeah.
And
Really?
so I think, yeah, absolutely.
I would agree because this whole food storage thing is regional. I think the food thing is regional just because, one, how big the United States is, and two, every state kind of has its own like agricultural mastery per se. Like Idaho has potatoes. You have the grain belt. So there are places where they can't feed themselves. Like my state, we have like Hormel. We have several like large corporate companies that have promised the governor the shelves aren't going to be empty, and they've held true to that. Every time we go to the store, Target, Walmart, there's always more to go around. So they're rationing it, but there's still people in and out of the stores, bags in their hands. So I think that's regional, and that's one thing that's concerned me is Brazil's more closer to the edge than I would say the United States is, simply because of the disparity, as we mentioned earlier. I have a female associate. Her job's not paying her. They said that they can't pay her because, for whatever reason, they can't pay her. So now you have someone who can't pay their rent. They can't eat. They have sick family members that are elderly were pre-existing conditions. What do you tell those people? What do they do? You know what I'm saying? So I think they are more closer than the United States. I think the United States, we're kind of in this gray area where the minute you can't get access to water or whatever, then you'll see that descent. But I don't think we're there yet. Not like Brazil or any other places in South America, especially Argentina. I heard, I've read about Argentina as well. They're slowly slipping as well.
Interesting. Interesting.
I think the main differences too between the U.S. and here, because Brazil produces a lot of food. It's not an issue of production.
Yeah.
It's more here an issue of infrastructure, and that Brazil doesn't have the type of safety nets that the U.S. does.
You said they do or they don't?
Brazil doesn't.
Okay.
Food banks, soup kitchens. I mean, there's some kind of. I think São Paulo probably has more, but like here in Bahia, there's very little infrastructure, so that when large groups go slipping off if that happens, that they go slipping off the edge, it's going to be hard to come back.
I don't understand this real quick. Green Machine. I need example. Green Machine, can you explain that in the comments? And I apologize, Lisa, for interrupting you. Green Machine, explain more in the comments. Continue, Lisa.
No, just that. I think that's one of the main differences between Brazil and the U.S. is the lack of infrastructure or functioning infrastructure and the safety net. And I think we take the safety net for granted a lot in the U.S.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Absolutely.
Like I'm from California, and if you really don't have money, you can go get food stamps. And you go to Whole Foods with your food stamps and eat well in California. That's not a possibility here. And I'm actually glad that the government is giving that $600 stimulus, and I hope that it continues, because, I mean, in places like Rio and São Paulo, if it gets to the point where people don't have money to eat, well, they know where the money is. They work in the houses of the people that have the money, and it will get ugly.
That's where we were going. That's where I was hoping we'd get to. Craig, tell them what I'm thinking.
Go ahead, brother. I'm going to let you take it.
See, here's the thing. By the way, look on your screens if anybody wants. This is a cost of living calculating website that I love. You can actually compare. It's called Numbeo. This is cost of living in São Paulo, Brazil. And I want to do I'm just going to pull all the way down markets. just to give people an idea of what 600 real can buy you in Brazil, it can feed a family of 3 at an adequate level, but not a high level. But we're also not factoring in, do they need to take one of the most expensive things is the cost of getting back and forth to work. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, where does that take us? When you talk about people working inside those houses, Brazil was, I think, the second longest in the Western world that had slavery.
Yep.
They have a long history of there may be others. They have a long history of what does every country sell cheap? The thing it has the most. If it's gold, it sells gold. But here, it's manual labor, right? Mm-hmm. So here, everybody I know, including me, we have maids. Some people really got in their feelings about that the first time I discussed it. I actually did a little chat about it, and I showed everybody. It was called Brazilian Maid Service for people who wanted to get all upset about it and explain to them, I don't care about your feelings. But the cost of it is so low. But here's the problem. If you talk to those maids, one, most of them are Black, right? Most of them are not only Black, they're Black and the victim of a government who did not educate them adequately, right? And now you're in a situation where you get to a certain age, you have no marketable skills, they're a maid, where do they go from there? Green Machine, he said, I've been driving shipping containers to the dump from the ports in Philadelphia area. He's a truck driver. 65 total fully loaded containers with ripe fruit in the trash.
Damn.
Oh, whoa.
That's American excess for you. That is excess for you. That's right there. Damn. Now, I don't know if you guys know how big shipping containers are, but those ain't no small things.
That's ridiculous.
Yo, that's crazy.
Wow. Thank you for clearing that up.
That's America for you.
It kind of speaks volumes that you live in a society that rather throw away, ripe fruit or maybe fruit that may be a few days after being ripe, but you rather throw away ripe fruit than give it to people who could. I mean, it's not going to cost anything. You're throwing it away anyway, so it's free. Why not just give it to people or put it somewhere and say, here you go. You can take this.
I'll tell you one.
If I can't sell it, ain't nobody getting it.
And I mean,
even more
go ahead.
Litigation. In America, you say, hey, because other countries do that. But in America, if you say, hey, listen, we're a fruit company, and at the end of the day, we could pay these truck drivers to take it all out. Or why don't we just go dump it down at the homeless shelter where the people who live on the street go and say, hey, look, these are going to go bad tomorrow, but if you guys want to go grab a bunch of fruit, go for it. If one of them gets sick, they can actually sue you out of your company.
Well, and that's
true. That's right. True. We're such a litigious society that people actually have to think about that first. Liability.
And I mean, Shelly asked you a question. Why in the trash? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was done with my comment.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How do we reconcile that? And then when things get ugly, we wonder why.
It's about, like I said before, being reactive as opposed to proactive. I mean, you could do the right thing by giving the people what they need, if it's truly a need, but we'd rather throw it in the trash because we worry about, one, not making enough money on it or being sued if something goes wrong.
And there's also the element of if you look at the war on poverty and how poverty has really been made a crime, instead of seeing the poor as victims, they're blamed for being poor. They're seen as criminals.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so why would you want to feed? There's almost a sense of, and I think this is across the, I don't know, it seems to be like maybe one of the side effects of our form of capitalism, where it's like the poor aren't worthy of being fed. Like, why would you give them?
Poverty is seen as a moral failure instead of a failure of government or society.
Yeah. It's the failure of that person. And so why do they deserve some free food? Why am I going to waste that food on them?
Yeah. Well, even think about it. Think about how people even give to the poor in America. It's sort of like I'm going to give you what I want you to have.
Right.
And if you have any objections to it, then I'm not going to give you anything.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Because you're going to use it for something that I don't think is morally right. Or I had a friend of mine who was trying to teach her kid how to be, nice to the poor and how to give to the poor. And so she buys a homeless guy a whole big pizza, a large pizza, and then the homeless guy refuses, said, "No, I don't want it." And so she gets mad at the homeless person because she thinks it's a bad example of him not being accepting. And so I pulled it to the side one day. I said, well, maybe he's lactose intolerant. Maybe you need to think about, maybe you should have asked him what he wanted or what he needed. It probably would have worked out better for him. He's homeless without a home and he's got a big box of pizza. It's not very mobile for him. And he may have, some physical problems trying to have pizza like that. So the better thing for you to do.
I can see it her way too, though, because the problem becomes when you're not a rich person and you're giving them a pizza you would have liked. It's one thing for them to say, I'll hold on to it and maybe give it to something else, but it does something to you when someone says, because I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen here in Brazil. I'll tell you a horror story. Downtown, there's a place called Galeria do Rock. It's a rock and roll gallery where if you want tattoos, you can go there. If you want some cool T-shirts, you can go there. Sneakers, it's a cool kid place, of which I'm not, but I go and look. And next to it, there was a little restaurant, just an average corner restaurant you find any place. And I'm sitting there eating chicken with my friends. We had a big plate of chicken wings, and we're all just eating and talking. Two girls come in. One, let's call her 13, and one, let's call her 11. And they looked at me, and they did the universal, can we have some food? So I looked at her, and the manager for the little outdoor restaurant comes over. He's really angry. And I said, whoa. Give them 2 Coca-Colas and 2, there is no way for me to say coxinha. So a coxinha is a fried thing that's got meat on the inside and potato on the outside, and it's really good. And no, it's not necessarily the best for you. But if you're living on the street,
it's sort of like hush puppies with something in the middle. With meat.
Oh, that's
stuff in the middle.
That's a good description. It's like a hush puppy with something in the middle, with chicken in the middle. So I ordered a big one of those for one for each of them. And the girl looked at us and said, no, I want what you have. I want a full plate food. And I was like,
that's different.
But I had that same experience, but it's a little different. Rio had a water crisis. I don't know if you read about it, but the tap water was tainted. I don't drink tap water. I always buy my water, but because of this, it caused a shortage in the city. So I had to walk half a mile to get a 10-liter thing of water. So I went shopping, whatever, and this girl, very ragged clothes. She couldn't be older than like 13 or 14. And she's like, can you buy this for me? And I was like, sure. So I put my stuff on the conveyor belt. I told the lady to bring my stuff up first so I could bag it so it wouldn't get included in mine. And I sort of put it there. The look on this lady's face, the cashier, was one of disgust. I mean, it's almost like to say she would have felt better if I said I killed somebody than buying someone like a yogurt and onion, like a bag of onions. That's the only thing I bought her, like a little drinkable yogurt and a bag of onions. And the look on her face was just like, how dare you?
Right.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So there definitely is. I don't think it's just in the United States. I think on the global scale, like people just generally see poverty and poor people as you're just not good enough to succeed in life. I think that's what it is really, because that's not even the first time that happened. When I don't buy expensive clothes, but I buy decent clothes. And I was like, well, I have too many clothes, so I'm just gonna, find someone to give it to. My boy's girlfriend knows a teenager on the street who's always passing out flyers for few real here and there. So I was like, hey, why don't you give these clothes to him, like $200 worth of clothes? And she was surprised. She was like, wow, these kids stay out here for years and people don't even bat an eye at them. And here you are giving, these are expensive clothes. And I said, well, where I'm from, Minneapolis is very liberal. So we tend to, do for people who don't have it. So I was like, this is what we do where I'm from. And, it was very surprising. So when she gave him the clothes, here are people that are walking down the street just flabbergasted as if, like I said, they would probably be more comfortable to say you kill somebody than you dare give someone on the street with tattered clothes some nice clothes to wear. So I think United States, I think that's a global issue.
I forgot to tell you the worst part about the story, because when I said no, I'm not going to buy you, plates of food, the manager looked over and said, "You're not going to buy the stuff, right?" I said no. He grabbed those girls the way a bouncer grabs a grown man, and my heart just broke. He grabs them under the arm and just threw them outside and said, "They come here." And it hurt me in a way. By the way, shout out and congratulations, Ganwe, on doing that. One of the things I do is in Brazil, I run a group called Black Expats in Brazil, and at least once a year I do meet and greet where we give away our old clothes. I bundle them all up, and I have the Salvation Army come and pick up all of our clothes, and I get everything: clothes, shoes, whatever you got, whenever the seasons change. It was hard for me to see that, because I wonder, when do you get to the point where your heart is so hard that grabbing these two girls like they were grown men at a nightclub, like how a bouncer has to throw somebody up for acting stupid.
Just talk them out. Just talk them out.
It broke my heart, and everybody else was, and my Brazilian friends, one of my buddies, he was just like, yeah. But we had a comment that I want to read. Lillian Quiroz said, "Even more than money and food, I believe homeless people also need dignity. Yeah. People think a homeless person needs to accept and be happy with any crap thing they are handed."
I agree with it 100%.
I think that's a little slippery though.
It's a very slippery slope.
Because if I only have $10 in my pocket and I see somebody on the street, let's say 2 5s, and I give you $5. I'm not giving you that out of pittance. I'm giving you that because that's what I can afford to give you. You know what I'm saying? So as small of a gift that may seem, that's not, and I do understand the point, but that's a very, very slippery slope. Where does the line between crap and something that's of value? Where's that line is very skewed. It's very murky. Like, if you give a homeless person a bag of a brand new pack of socks, is that a crap? Is that a crap donation?
No, if you know homeless people, socks are probably the most valuable thing you can give homeless people. Socks.
But you get the point. You get.
Yeah, I do get the point.
Like something that's like not $50. Like maybe you paid $15 for it or $10 for it versus not give somebody like $1,000 like Drake or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, where's that line between what's deemed valuable and what's deemed as something that's you just gave it because you didn't want it anymore? You know what I'm saying? So
and it's awkward because dignity is one of those things, and I know that what I'm saying is a cool thing. Is dignity a privilege? When you don't have food, do you really get to claim dignity when your priority has to be, I just need something in my belly? Begging by itself is an act that robs you of your dignity. And I understand that. And I don't want anyone to have to beg, because it does take away from who you are on the inside. But when you are on that street life already,
Hey, Yusef, I'm gonna have to hop off.
Okay. Hey, listen, thank you.
Nice meeting you guys.
I'll be in Bahia. I'm coming to Bahia at the end of the year. So in Salvador.
Who's coming to Bahia?
Yeah, Salvador, like December 10th or so.
Okay.
So will you take him someplace decent?
Who knows? Huh?
Will you take him someplace decent so he gets away from that lot of like urine?
Not all neighborhoods smell like urine during carnival, so I don't know anything. I don't go out anymore, actually.
Hey, I'm a jack of all trades, so quit throwing shade, man. Throwing shade.
You're living your best life, man.
On Facebook. Make sure you share it, okay?
I'm sorry?
I shared it with you on Facebook. Make sure you share it as well so we can get more people to watch.
Okay, I will. I'll do that now. Good night, guys.
Hey, take care now.
Nice meeting you. What's your name on the left, on my left?
Craig.
Craig and
Wade.
Wade.
Yeah, it's Wade straight.
Oh, okay.
Because he's cool.
Smooth like that, man. Smooth like that.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Shelley Lloyd said that same thing happened in Houston at the infamous McDonald's near the bus station. If that's the name, the McDonald's, that sounds like something out of a horror movie. A cop looked at me in disdain when I bought a breakfast meal for a homeless dude who refused it.
Huh. Maybe he didn't like it.
Maybe McDonald's gives him an upset stomach. Who knows? I know it does for me, but I think it run through you.
Hey, look at this. Seeing broken men is one of the most painful things, in my opinion, about the homeless. To know a man's spirit has been crushed and how easily it could be you.
That's deep right there, boy. That's deep.
That's profound.
You know, at least, and yeah, Shelley agrees, at least Green Machine, when he had some stuff on his truck that they were heading for the dump, at least he had the decency to make friends with his neighbors, which is the first line of defense in any catastrophe, is make sure your neighbors know who you are. And he gave it to him, which is that's a beautiful thing to see. You know, it's where do we go from here? Go ahead.
Well, most people are intrinsically good, so you'll start to see these good acts of kindness coming out, and particularly in situations where there's desperation in the air, you'll normally have people step up to the even if I've heard comparisons like this is a slippery slope to the Hunger Games. You know?
Holy shit. Well, hold on for a second. What you just said, you used the word, okay? I want to pull this up now. Some people who need to do some reading, look up Hobbes versus Locke. You know, the intrinsic nature of man. Are men normally good and do bad things, or bad and do good things?
Yep.
You know, that's the thing.
And I think desperate times, you'll see people that pull through, or, you know, and it'll just be interesting to see. We should have this conversation 6 months from now and see how things have changed.
Well, that's why I wrote this pre-check, right? We're going to do one post-check after the check's check. What did Lillian say here? She said, we can't choose what is best for the other people. They've got to choose for themselves. If we cannot help the way they need, we should find a different way or just do nothing. That's fair. That's fair. There's a homeless guy that's always close to my house. The other day, he looked down and I asked what was going on. He said he was sick. Jeez. Yeah, and you got to figure out what they need. It's a difficult thing for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And right now, we're really going to find out if the government can help fill that need. Because, like I said, that 600, it can feed you a little bit. But the question is, if they do this for 3 months, then what? If the American government gives people for 3 months and now they've given you a loan, which that just, I wouldn't want it. I can't say that.
I wouldn't spend a dime of that if it was a loan.
I would not touch that. I would not touch it. There's no way.
Like, look, man, you know, we just gonna have to go Hunger Games with the sticks and the bats outside.
We Lord of the Flies.
But here's the problem. If all three of us took a picture of what's inside our refrigerator, I don't think any of us are really, like, that's why we can afford not to touch it.
Right. That's true. That's true.
But I mean, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because I mean, if you can't afford to touch it and you touch it and you still have to pay it back, you're not going to be. I mean, you'll be good in the short term. In the long term, you're only kind of delaying the inevitable. I mean, let's be frank. If you say, okay, well, we're going to give you $1,200 the next 3 months, it's a loan, you have to pay it back. At some point within the next 3 years, right? If your situation, as far as financially, doesn't change, you're not in any better of a situation, right? On top of the other things that could happen. So you're kind of delaying in the inevitable, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you don't take it, you're going to eat shit. If you do take it, you're going to eat shit. You're just going to eat shit later down the road. So
yeah, and my whole point, which is something to think about, is what are going to be first of all, how are they going to enforce people who decide, hey, I can't afford to pay this money back. You gave it to me. I took care of my immediate needs, but I'm still in the same situation that I was 3 months ago. You want to collect your money? You can't get blood from a stone. What you going to do? How are they going to enforce it?
Oh! Can I tell you what I think? By the way, he couldn't eat a sandwich because of his condition, so she bought some vegetables and made him soup. That's kindness.
That's nice.
But here's how it's going to work. If the government throws you this lifeline, you take it, and you know what? Let's say, you know what? They give it to me, and I tell them, look, it's 6 months later. You can come for me, but I don't have it. They'll say, okay, that's no big deal. But here's where it gets ugly. Let's say you do make yourself into a better position. They can put you on, they will call it frauding the federal government. First, they're going to accuse you of fraud, right? You won't be eligible for any college loans. You won't be able to get or renew a passport. That's something a lot of people don't know about.
So it'd be sort of like for the guys that are delinquent on their child support, sort of like
they'll do that as well. And I mean, there are so many little things that they can do.
Interesting.
To screw you over if you don't pay them that money back, even if you don't have it. Revoke your driver's license. These are things that well in the power of the government.
Yeah, it's sort of like taking a loan from the Godfather. I pass.
You know what? Honestly, I think if you took a loan from organized crime, you're probably going to get a better rate, and you know exactly what the consequences are. They tell you ahead of time. I'm going to give you this. You give it back to me on this day, or we're going to have another conversation.
Right.
There's not going to be any mystery about the terms. Everybody knows everybody's job. Now, you can be here on the first with my money, or I can send somebody to come and talk to you. But there's not going to be I wonder what's going to happen.
That's true.
It might incentivize you to get the money a little bit faster than anything else.
Right?
Might incentivize you.
Feds,
I know.
Feds, they're going to stick it to you in so many different ways. You would wish they would just break my leg. Just break my leg. Just break my leg.
The thing is, I mean, no matter what you think about the politics of it, we got a businessman in office, and that's exactly what a business person would do. An extreme capitalist would do exactly what we have now. They would give out a loan or predate your next what do you call it? Income.
Well, I mean, but that the only caveat with that is that that was Congress. So we know that, we got corrupt politicians. We forget that Trump is not the godfather of the country. He can only sign the bill. He can veto them, but we really got to look at the people who are put in office to represent our quote unquote best interests. So, I mean, sure, he signed it, and we can give some accountability to him for that, barring that is a loan, because I haven't read that it was a loan. So, but just going on this premise that they are loaning people the money. I mean, there's a lot of people who need to, get some of the ass whooping. Let's not be politically correct. Need to be held accountable, hold their feet to the fire. Like, look, people have this money in the time that you're looking for it. You're certainly not going to start taking people's money that they work for. So let's, we stopped doing that a long time ago. I haven't even seen it in my lifetime. Maybe when I was younger, a kid, I heard people talking about political conversations and talk about being more proactive. But this time and day, no. So I mean, I don't think it's really going to change anytime soon. If they do it, it's a loan. We're just kicking the can down the road for another generation to pick it up. So that's just my perspective on the whole situation.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And again, I'm not 100% sure. So we should put that out there that we don't know that if it's a loan. I just heard that it might be, or it might be just, you just get an advancement on your stimulus check for the following year. Whatever you paid in taxes or whatever you got as a refund the previous year, if you filed, you're eligible. And it's just predating it for the next year, or it might even be a loan. Who knows? If somebody knows specifically.
Well, here's what I'm not sure that the government knows yet.
True.
I'm not convinced that they know the terms of repayment. And that's another scary thing. I believe that the money might just come, but I don't think they're sure about how to deal with getting this money back. Because again, earlier, what did we talk about? We talked about a long chain. There's a corner restaurant. It's got waiters and waitresses, but they also order money. They order meat from a butcher. They order bread from a baker, right? And they've got to pay rent on that place. So do we now tell the butcher, the baker, the guy renting them the space for his restaurant, you got to hold off on your money? But the butcher, the baker, and the guy that owns the place that he's renting out to him, they got families to feed too. So they write a letter to the electric bill, the grocery store, and listen, I would pay you with the money that I had coming in off my rental property, but that's not coming. But I need some chicken for my children anyway.
Yeah. Somebody said it works like an advance. IORE666 said it works like an advance. Still kind of kicking the can down the road, though, like Anya said.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. We got. There we go. I'm taking 12 out of it. They're taking it works like an advance. If you can give me any links to support that, I'd really appreciate it. And that's not just you, that's anybody. Because I feel like right now we're blind men in a dark room searching for a hat that isn't there.
Yeah, and I don't like to give information unless I can 100% verify it. And so that's why I had to need the caveat of that's just what I heard, through various sources. I don't know specifically.
And a lot of the articles that I've read, they're like, oh, stimulus check. And there's like, oh, well, so I'm thinking it's, well, the 48 laws of power just always despise a free lunch. So I always had in the back of my mind that
there's no such thing as a free lunch.
String, just take $1,200 and go get you something to eat so your family can survive. Of course, I knew in the back of my mind that wasn't going to be the case, but I was hopeful. Man can hope and dream. But
well, the only experience that we have is back when back in 07 and 08 when we had those Obama stimulus checks. Right. And I'm not sure if it's the same program as how that worked or if it's going to be something different. We'll see.
Well, the Obama stimulus checks, though, those were not to be paid back.
Mm-mm. They didn't come from me, that's for sure.
Because I think I got $8,000 off that one.
Dang, you got bread. You got stacks.
Yeah, I didn't get none of that. I got.
Where you got money over there?
None of that.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I was a homeowner. And I will tell people this all the time. The thing about working in the financial industry is that I learned how to manipulate money totally legally and how to represent your money to different parties legally. It's very and I can't remember that far back how I did the paperwork or how I qualified, but I understood. Again, that's one of the things that made me get out as early as I could, not to be part of that financial system anymore. I mean, capitalism is a cruel, cruel master, but once you get on top of your dollars, when I realized this is just a game, it's just a shell game. So I had to learn how to play it to get out. And I got to check. I think I got $8,000. I think that $8,000.
Yeah, you had a little inside information that a lot of us probably didn't have.
Well,
I don't think I broke 2 G's on mine. If I'm trying to remember, I don't think I broke that.
I just remember when mine came in the door, I was
trying to stimulate your economy.
I know, right? Looking at facts. Of course, you gotta do a little dance, something.
I did a little dance. It was on. I'm like, because I felt like this is my payment because I was a state representative for Obama locally and then in Reno.
Gotcha.
But yeah, little things like that, and again, we have the privilege of being able to sit here and talk about it. I have a client in Brazil who said what she worries about is there are people in the deep, poor North, which in America, the closest equivalent would be the deep, poor South. But she said who don't even have cell phones and they won't even be able to register for this money, who are underbanked. They don't even have bank accounts. They just go to their boss and get cash every day. They live out in the countryside. Those people need that $600.
Damn. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that didn't even cross my mind. You talking about like Sarah or like what, or like Set and GP? Like what part of the North are we talking? How north are we talking? Like Fortaleza? Or how far north? You said what?
Hold on.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the rural population, or they even have populations that don't even mess with banks or technology like that. That's interesting.
Well, here's what we tend to forget. As people who live in, Ganwe lives in Rio, you and I live in Sao Paulo. We live in the two most prestigious areas, maybe in South America, in Rio and Sao Paulo, right? Sure. But we forget Brazil is an enormous country. It's enormous. And when you get that big, when you start, I'm trying to look for a map that's going to show me. Okay, here's some. Here we go. All right. Northeast region of Brazil. Let me share this. Piauí, Maranhão. I'm pronouncing these wrong and I know it. Bahia is where you start to get up there, but Rio Grande do Norte, Seara, I know somebody from POE. Those places, you might be out in the sticks. You might be a worker on a farm that's one step removed from basically sharecropping.
Right.
And what do?
Yeah, they have to figure that out.
Or even worse, get manipulated by somebody who says, okay, well, I can register all this for you and I'll just take a cut.
Yeah, they got those scams. I just heard something in Tampa today about how the scammers are already ramping up for when, this Trump bucks come. And they're starting to scam older people and the people that don't know, saying that they're from certain organizations and they will, basically give you money ahead of time. And they need all your credit card information to do direct deposits and, all your banking stuff. And a lot of people are falling for it.
That's the thing. So what do we do now? We're just going to have to see, wait.
Well, this topic was about, socialism. And so I think when we're talking about certain instances, socialism to a degree is merited. So we have to look beyond, the almighty buck or the dinero, and then look towards how you can deal with your people. And sometimes you may not make any money, but if it's for the greater good of the people, it's what's necessary. And Brazil has to figure out what that is for its society. America has to figure out what it is for that society. But it can't be strictly about money. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit different. I'm similar, but not to the socialism extent. I believe in meritocracy. So I believe in.
That's a big word, buddy.
I believe in that, the people who are the most skilled, the intelligent people, it's like a race. Let me put it in the metaphor. It's like a race. You don't want to handicap the people who are most athletic. We're talking about just skill based. We're not talking about, forget lineage and people with, like the money aspect. We're just talking about a race. You have 5 competitors. Do we really want to handicap the best runner that could maybe bring, progress your team or whoever further simply for the sake of equality? And what I mean by that is,
I don't understand your analogy. Maybe I'm slow tonight. Help me understand your analogy.
So let's say there's a race, right? And my whole thing with socialism is that, you kind of stipend the competition a little bit, right? So everybody kind of can cross the finish line at the same time. In my perception of the term. And
here's what I learned, Godway. And if I see your point, and Craig, feel free to jump in even on top of me. Here's what I see. You feel as if you don't want to be in a situation where the best and brightest don't get as far because we want to give everybody a chance. What I learned as a financial professional, and I hope we're friends after this, right? The people who need the help the most are the ones brainwashed and conditioned to reject it first. One of the easiest ways to make poor people stay poor is to convince them that one day they'll be in the group of people who don't need the help. I promise you that all 3 of us need that help. I promise that all 3 of us politically and economically need to be on the side of help the people who don't run as fast. But it's easier to trick someone than to convince someone they've been tricked.
And I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case, that we shouldn't help people. I'm just saying that it shouldn't be as much handicaps on those, because let's just be frank, some of us may not have the same, whether mental capabilities, physical capabilities, as those who may be running faster than us. And so for us as a society to progress, whether it's technologically, whether it's scientifically, do we really want to stipend those, we really want to hinder those people from helping us progress? Because again, you're right, we'll only be as strong as our weakest link. But yet again, we don't want to have everybody run the same pace as the weakest link, because then we'll never get to where we need to go. There needs to be a balance. And that's why I'm not full socialism.
But by giving weaker people a hand up, you're not putting something on those that don't need it. You're by helping the bottom 20%, you're not handicapping them.
There's an illustration that I sent you, Yusef, that illustrates the point of what Gagne and everybody here is talking about. It's the difference between equality and equity. And if you take a look at the image that I sent, it'll kind of explain what's going on. Sorry to interrupt the discussion. I'm sorry.
No. We're wrapping it up. I got stuff I got to do, and I know you guys got stuff you got to do too. But okay. Here's okay. Equality versus equity. Now, okay, yeah. So,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Capture it.
All right, you explain it fine. So, one illustrates what equality is, and if you just look at the pictogram, you see how it is, and then you see what equity is. Wow. And I'm more prone to be involved with the whole equity part. So sometimes it means giving a hand up, not a handout. And I think in the United States we confuse a hand up with a handout. But not everybody's created equal.
Well, here's the thing. Not even created equal. Not everybody had a chance at an education. Not everybody got to go home from school and worry about homework and not whether or not a policeman is going to come and kick in your door because you look like somebody that committed a crime.
Right.
Those small things, those make enormous differences in neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, I feel good. We got to do this again, after those texts come and see how they feel.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
See how life looks after them Trump bucks hit the direct deposit. May not
make it rain.
Well, I'm always you know where I'm going with this. I'm glad to say that if that money does come from either government, and I get it, I'm glad to say it's going to be something that I can use as a tool, not a crutch. Because as some of you may know, how do I earn? I'm a YouTuber, but I'm not a YouTuber. I do not have a YouTube contract. I'm an editor, writer, copywriter. If you have a book, a website, a paper that needs to be written, or I've been doing a ton of resume writing jobs for people. That's what I do. And if you catch me on LinkedIn, you can find out who I am professionally. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, don't look at my resume first. I tell people this every day. Don't look at my resume. Resume is cool. Don't look at it first. Look at my recommendations and look what other business professionals have said about me. Look at what people around the world have talked about as far as my level of professionalism. That's what I want you to look at first, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Now, what I have been able to do since I'm not a YouTuber is I've been on Patreon, and I was able to put myself in a situation where a lot of the micro advice that I give, a lot of the things that I've shown people on advice as far as just what I've learned as a financial professional, what I've learned after living in 15 countries around the world, all those small tips, tricks, pieces of advice, things that make an enormous difference in life. I got tired of giving it away for free to people who would waste my time and then not do the stuff. But Patreon allowed me to start to build a small community where I can literally put the information out there, and the people at different levels, depending on the level of participation, I'm going to show you guys this is where they can join me. And so I want everybody to check that out too. Let's see, there we go. The cutthroats, the arrogance level, and the arcane.
The arcane. Sounds magic.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The first sentence is without moral judgment for people who want everything.
All right, there you go. There you go.
That's for people who I do a lot of face-to-face time with those guys, and we get things done.
As it should.
All right, thank you. And what we'll do is I'm going to log off here. We can chat behind the scenes. And hey, those small things do make all the difference. I hope everybody has a good night.